request your cooperation by supporting participants and officials in a positive manner. Profanity, racial or sexist comments, or intimidating actions directed at coaches, players, officials, or any other team representatives will not be tolerated and are grounds for removal. Also, the consumption or possession of alcoholic beverages and tobacco is strictly prohibited. Failure to adhere to these policies may result in immediate dismissal. President Dana and the Southern Virginia University staff thank you for your support of these student athletes and coaches participating in today's contest. Please stay away from the playing area and team bench areas. Thank you for your cooperation. And go Knights! In accordance with tradition at Southern Virginia University, we will begin with a word of prayer, which will be offered by Jessica Ensley from our women's volleyball team.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this day. We're grateful that we can all be here today to watch this game, and we're grateful that both teams can get here safely. Please bless that no harm or accident will come upon them during the game, and bless that everyone will be able to make it home safely later today. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
And now for today's starting lineups. Starting for the Knights from St. Andrews University. Number 4 from Cabo Rojo, Puerto Rico, Alex Vasquez Sanchez. Number 5, a senior setter from Center Moriches, New York, Dakota Hodeling. And middle blocker from Fajardo, Puerto Rico, number 7, Francisco Figueroa. And outside, a senior from Chicago, Illinois, number 8, Jameer Jackson. A middle blocker from Midlothian, Virginia, number 10, Kenton Bedford. And at center, a sophomore from Cairo, Egypt, number 23, Hazem Nabil. And at libero, number 15, from Brasilia, Brazil, I already said number 15, the libero, Leonardo Cirquera. The Knights are coached by Ben Twigger, and he is assisted by Mateus Henrique and Joe Perry. And now for the home team Knights. And outside, number 1 from Sao Paulo, Brazil, Cristo Bianchi. And outside hitter, the sophomore from Mason, Arizona, number 4, what can Brown do for you? Tony Brown. At center, a senior from Palmyra, Pennsylvania, number 10, Tyler Schaefer. And outside, a sophomore from Palmyra, Pennsylvania, number 11, Christian Schaefer. And opposite, a sophomore from Queen Creek, Arizona, number 15, Jason Hall. And that middle blocker, he's a bad man. Number 20, Steve Rasmussen. And at libero, number 1 in your heart, but number 6 in your program, from Las Vegas, Nevada, Justin Hudson. The Knights are coached by Tom Peterson. He is assisted by Cheryl Peterson, Gabe Wagner, Taylor Bowers, and Russell Tompkins. May the best Knights win. Now, if you'll all please rise and face the flag for the playing of our national anthem. Let's play volleyball. May the best Knights win.
Well, welcome tonight to Knights Broadcasting, I guess it's today, to the men's volleyball. Southern Virginia University Knights against the St. Andrews Knights. As the announcer here tonight was saying earlier, let the best Knights win today. We are excited for tonight. It should be a great game. SVU Knights played Marymount University just yesterday and came out on top with 3-0 against Marymount. And tonight we are playing St. Andrews Knights. Looks like our starters for the St. Andrews Knights will be number 10, Kenton Bedford, number 8, Jameer Jackson, number 23, Hazim Al-Ghaffar. Sorry if I'm pronouncing things wrong. Number 5, Dakota Hodling. Number 4, Alex Vasquez Sanchez. And number 7, Francisco Figueroa. Wow, sorry. And their libero today is 15, Leonardo Seguera. And then starting for your Southern Virginia Knights is number 1, Christo Biankin. Number 10, Tyler Schaefer. Number 15, Jayton Hall. Number 4, Jeremy Brown. Number 11, Christian Schaefer. And number 6, Justin Madsen.
With the kill. Hall back to serve for the Knights.
I am Marion Gowdy. Happy to be one of your commentators today, along with my friend Quinn. He will also be joining me with the commentating tonight. And he was just commentating lacrosse, so he's just coming in and setting up. And I believe our lacrosse team just won about 17-2.
Yep, beat Huntington College.
Huntington College, yep. And I have a little extra happiness for that win since my husband is one of the coaches for that men's lacrosse team. But looks like Jeremy Brown is back to serve.
My thoughts together of a Knights on Knights matchup today. St. Andrews from North Carolina. And the Knights coming off a super nice looking win against Marymount last night, sweeping all 3 sets. Great set for Jeremy Brown and puts it right down the middle. Good looking shot there.
Steve Rasmussen checks in for Southern Virginia. Please go back to serve.
So Miriam, what are your thoughts on how the Knights are looking so far after a big win yesterday?
I mean, it always feels good to come out of a big win. It was nice that they did it in 3, so they're not too tired for today. But you hope that they don't get a little casual and complacent.
Yeah, exactly.
Which maybe we see that every once in a while, but I feel like the Knights are pretty good about bouncing back from that and coming together as a team and fixing what they need to fix when they need to fix it. So we'll see how they do. It looks like they're doing good so far with 5-3 for the SVU Knights.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, Miriam, it's easy to get complacent after a big win against a nationally ranked team. So hopefully the Knights can keep going early and extend their lead. Looks like that's Alde Ghaffar back to serve from Egypt. 6'6" sophomore for the Knights of St. Andrews. Big strike there by Jayton Hall. And St. Andrews will just place it back over the net with a big set for Schaefer. And that'll be a point for the Knights of Southern Virginia.
Tyler Schaefer back to serve. Checking in for the Knights, number 18, Kyler Evans.
And checking in for the Knights is number 18, Kyler Evans, getting some more height on the front line by the nets. Schaefer back to serve for the Knights. Jeremy Brown sets it, a tough placement, but they're able to get it back over. Madsen with the save there. And that's going to be another point for the Knights.
Yeah, when the ball gets set so close to the net there, I mean, it's harder for your own player to hit the ball, but sometimes it brings those blockers in a little closer to the net trying to make a play themselves.
Nice dig by Jeremy Brown. Madsen feeds it right back to Brown and puts it over the net. Another good keep by Madsen. Now Kyler Evans on the right side and sends that just high. And that'll be another point for St. Andrews, 7-4 now. And it'll be interesting, Miriam, after coming off a big win against Marymount yesterday, it'll be interesting to see how many players the Knights get into rotation, going through mostly an 8-man rotation yesterday against Marymount, and we'll see which other players get some action today. Nice block by Steve Rasmussen.
I feel like they've even switched it up already. Steve Rasmussen didn't play at all yesterday, so getting him some playing time today.
Vasquez Sanchez to serve.
Number 4, Vasquez Sanchez for St. Andrews back to serve. Sends it far left, and that's going to be a point for the Knights, a fault on the serve.
Christian Schaefer back to serve.
Christian Schaefer, number 11, leads the Knights this year with 210 kills on the season. Nice tap over by Jameer Jackson from St. Andrews, but Knights get it back, and Kyler Evans with the kill once again.
Christian Schaefer back to serve.
Christian Schaefer back to serve yet again. Alde Ghaffar sends it back over. Christian Schaefer feeds his brother and back to his brother, and that's another kill for Christian Schaefer.
It begins and it ends with Christian.
And Miriam, what kind of an impact do you think the Schaefer brothers have made on the team this year? They're always combining for the Schaefer special, and what do you think makes them such a lethal tandem?
I mean, with them being brothers, you know that they've had to, I mean, I guess I'm assuming a little bit here, but they've probably played a lot of volleyball together.
Yes.
And so that's a lot of history, that's a lot of chemistry that's been made between the two of them. I bet they can just look at each other and know what each other mean. Don't even have to really talk. I'm sure they do talk, but...
Exactly, the brother chemistry.
Yep.
As they've played almost every set for the Knights this year. Miscommunication, and Tyler Schaefer tries to fish it back over, but ends up under the net. That's going to be a point for St. Andrews.
But I think with the Schaefers, I mean, it's not like they dominate the play. They're very good about, especially Tyler's very good about varying up where he sets it, changing it up on who's hitting, and whether front row, back row, and it really throws off the other team's defense. He's very good at it. Absolutely. They're very good all-around players. They're able to chip in for some kills, but also some big blocks, as we saw yesterday. Another big hit by Kyler Evans, but that's going to be a point for St. Andrews, just outside the line, the official says. And now it's Francisco Figueroa back for St. Andrews. Feeding back to Jeremy Brown, a big hit. Nice dig from Vasquez Sanchez. And that's going to be another point for the Knights. Kyler Evans on the big block there. As Cristo Bianchi subs back in for Southern Virginia. Justin Madsen comes out. And Steve Rasmussen is back to serve for Southern Virginia. Little high, and that's going to sail over the net and behind the line for a point for St. Andrews.
Totally back to serve.
Jeremy Brown with a big strike, and that's going to sail to the right of the line, and that's going to be a point for St. Andrews. It's a good idea. It's always a good idea to try and go around the blocker, find those open spots on the court. But that one just went a little too wide. Absolutely. Jeremy Brown, we've seen his ability to elevate super high on the left side, and that one just didn't quite go, but there's a kill for Southern Virginia to make it 12-11. And Merriam, with the Knights, they've put up very good showings against some nationally ranked teams, including Marymount yesterday. They're 3-1 against ranked teams in the country. So what are your hopes for the Knights going forward for the rest of this season? I mean, tonight, hopefully they can sweep again and keep going the rest of the season like that. But you notice the score right now, 11-13 for the Southern Virginia Knights. That's kind of a close game, especially for where these teams are ranked. But it's kind of a common thing in volleyball where you kind of play to each other's level a little bit when you're like against another team. So even tonight so far, I've seen the Southern Virginia Knights play a little bit scrappier than they did last night. Last night was a little bit more clean. They were running a lot more actual plays that you can tell that they've practiced. Tonight's been a little bit scrappier. They're not playing as many of their trick plays, but they're still making it happen. Absolutely. Southern Virginia, they seemed like they played a flawless game against number 12 ranked Marymount. And St. Andrews, they give up a little more height towards Southern Virginia, but they're playing them tough so far. 15-11 now after that miss hit from St. Andrews. Jayton Hall back to serve. He leads the team coming into today with 32 aces. Shaves the net, back off the light. And welcome to the barn for St. Andrews. I feel like that's something we talk about with every game is welcome to the barn. This ceiling is way lower than most volleyball players are used to playing in. And so, like, the Southern Virginia Knights play here every day, basically, so they're used to it. It still gets them sometimes even, but other teams coming in, it's definitely part of the atmosphere here that you have to adjust to that's unique to Southern Virginia Barn here. Absolutely, and St. Andrews coming in, they're not very familiar with Southern Virginia, St. Andrews being an NAIA team, so certainly they haven't been accustomed to the barn, to the Stoddard Center here in Southern Virginia. So they're in their huddle, I'm sure they're trying to adjust and realizing that sometimes they're not going to be able to hit it as high and need to watch the ceiling. So far in set one, Southern Virginia leads St. Andrews 16-11.
Jayton Hall back to serve for the Knights.
Jayton Hall is back to serve once again for Southern Virginia. Another athlete on the Knights roster that boasts a lot of athleticism. He's also a conference champion high jumper as of a couple weeks ago. Christian Schaefer, a nice soft hit right in the middle of the St. Andrews players, and that's another point for the Knights. Jayton Hall back to serve for a third consecutive time. Big serve, and it bounces right back off the ceiling and sent back over by Kenton Bedford. Jeremy Brown elevates and strikes it right down the middle for another point for the Knights.
Jayton Hall to serve. Checking in for the Knights, number 14.
It looks like Curtis Stone
Curtis Stone
for the Knights is subbing back in. Another player who didn't get playing time yesterday against Marymount. And Caristo Bianchi will sit on the bench for a little bit. And that serve by Jayton Hall will sail over the net and behind the line for a point for St. Andrews.
For the Knights, number 8, Jameer Jackson.
Tyler Schaefer with the setup and looking for Curtis Stone, but a good block by Alda Kafar to send it back into the Knights zone for a point for St. Andrews. Back to Jeremy Brown, and a good save by Madsen. It was blocked back into the Knights zone. Jeremy Brown a second time. Good save from St. Andrews. Vasquez Sanchez tips it, and that's going to be behind the line. A point for Southern Virginia. 19-13 now in the first set.
That last rally, you can really tell that the Southern Virginia Knights have great court awareness. I mean, Tyler wasn't in the normal place to set, but he still set it exactly where it needed to be for his hitter to get it. And then later, Christian was in the back, and he knew since it was so high up on his body, that ball was just going to go out, so he just let it go out.
Absolutely. And now number 13 for the Knights, Jeff Tomlinson. Another player for the Knights who didn't get playing time against Marymount is subbed in for Jeremy Brown. Juan Silva back to serve for St. Andrews. He's a freshman from Elizabethtown, New Jersey. Madsen with a good keep, and Curtis Stone right over the top. And that's going to be a point right on the line for Southern Virginia. Steve Rasmussen subbing back in for Justin Madsen. Curtis Stone back for the Knights to serve. Right into the net. That's a point for St. Andrews.
Neville back to serve.
And just as you said, Miriam, so far in this first set, the rotations looked a lot different, going a lot deeper into the roster for the Knights. Christian Schaefer set up right into the face of Olga Defar, and that goes behind the line for another point for Southern Virginia.
Tyler Schaefer back to serve. Tyler Evans checks in for the Knights.
Tyler Schaefer back to serve for the Knights. And it looked like good awareness there by Christian Schaefer, and that will be a point for the Knights.
Tyler Schaefer to serve.
And again, just as Miriam was saying, the Schaefer brothers able to contribute in all aspects of the game. As Tyler Schaefer back to serve.
Checking in for the Knights, number 5,
And Mateo Kimball able to sub in for the Knights in place of Tyler Schaefer. He'll be back to serve. A lot of excitement for for some of the guys on the Knights roster to get into the game when they didn't yesterday. Here's Mateo setting for Kyler Evans. Hits the ceiling. Tipped back over by St. Andrews, and now the Knights have a chance to set up Christian Schaefer for another kill, and it's 24-15 Southern Virginia.
I was talking about that court awareness earlier. Even Justin Madsen, I mean, right there you saw that court awareness that he had. Being a libero, you're a little bit more used to setting from weird places on the court, but still, I've seen that in multiple games so far with Justin Madsen when he needs to step in as setter, always getting it where it needs to go.
Yeah, a lot of players on the Knights have been underrated contributors to the team this year. It's not just the guys who have the most kills or the most digs, but the guys who are able to truly be playmakers and set up those big points. As the end of the set here, the Knights lead 1-0 early on, and they'll switch benches for the second set. And once again, as you were saying, Miriam, St. Andrews, you know, they give away a lot of height that the Knights boast with McKay Walker, who hasn't played, but a lot of taller guys near the net for Southern Virginia, but St. Andrews so far has played them tough. And so far this afternoon, Jeremy Brown, or Christian Schaefer rather, leads the Knights with 7 kills. Hitting percentage of .778 so far, and Tyler Schaefer leads his 12 assists, just as he has all season. So Miriam, what are some takeaways that we can know about the first set?
Well, like I said earlier, the St. Andrews Knights team, it's a little bit more scrappy than Marymount was last night. But I think that is a good thing in some ways. I mean, it definitely changes it up. It keeps you on your toes. You can't be doing the most predictable things all the time. You definitely have to communicate as a team a little bit more when you're scrappy, just because you might have to take a role that you're not normally taking. But I think the SVU Knights are answering it well so far. And I think the St. Andrews Knights, seems like they have a lot of, what is the word I want right now? Gusto? That's not exactly what I want to say.
A lot of energy.
There we go. Something like that. They seem like they have a lot of energy and gusto to really go after that ball and really try to make it happen. So.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing about these non-conference matchups is you're able to learn. You know, obviously, Southern Virginia in a very difficult conference, the CBC, quite a few different teams ranked, including Juniata, who they defeated earlier this season. So getting a different scene, a different team, different style of play from St. Andrews will be helpful for Southern Virginia, hopefully down the stretch this year.
And even in, like we were talking about earlier, bringing in some of those players that don't get a ton of playing time with some of their conference play, making their team even deeper, giving those guys experience. Hopefully if the worst happens in later games, then you know that you have reliable guys to come on the court later.
Exactly, because you never know what will happen. There could be injuries. Obviously, there's a couple of seniors who play prominent roles on the team this year. So it's all in preparation for the next game, further down in the season, and next year as well. So starting the second set for the Knights looks to be Jeremy Brown, Mateo Kimball, Justin Madsen, Curtis Stone, Christian Schaefer, and Jayton Hall in the back there to get us started here in set number 2. Knights lead 1-0 so far this afternoon.
Welcome to set
Good
number
intense
2.
play by St. Andrews early on, but Southern Virginia able to pull away in the second half of the first set.
Back to serve for the Knights, Jayton Hall.
And once again, Knights on Knights today. St. Andrews, also the Knights. Jayden Hall back to serve once again for Southern Virginia. Both benches getting into it. And a bit of a miscommunication there with Mateo Kimball and Jayden Hall, and the return from the serve sails right on into the Knights zone for a point for St. Andrews. And Miriam, how difficult it is sometimes to communicate with your teammates on plays like that?
I mean, especially if you haven't had as much experience. I'm sure they play together during practice, so they do have some experience obviously playing together. But yeah, when you see your teammate jump up, you expect him, he's gonna get that ball, so you're not gonna put as much effort to be there. But then when you're in the front, you think you have their back guy. So
exactly.
In plays like that are unexpected, it's definitely hard to communicate, but something they can work on.
Absolutely. And now number 8. Jameer Jackson is back to serve for St. Andrews. St. Andrews leads it 2-1 early on in set number 2. Mateo Kimball the set for Christian Schaefer and sends it. Really powerful kill right there. And that's going to be a point for Southern Virginia.
Back to serve, Stone Cold, Curtis Stone.
Curtis Stone once again back to serve. Has gotten the nod ever since he came in. Played the remaining of set 1 and so far the entirety of set number 2. Officials checking on the net. Make sure everything is proper. And Curtis Stone right into the net. St. Andrews regains the lead once again, 3-2. And it's Juan Silva back to serve for St. Andrews, number 25. Kimball the set to Christian Schaefer, tap right over, and a bit of a miscommunication there, and that'll be another point for Southern Virginia. And that's another thing about the Knights. They're super deceptive on plays like that at the net. They've seen the master that. Christian Schaefer, also Caristo Bianchi has done well with those type of plays at the net.
I really am a big fan of keeping it aggressive, especially up in the front line, trying to get those hits down to the floor. But every once in a while, if you see that open spot and you can just tip it right over those blockers, it throws off your defense, it keeps you a little bit unpredictable, and adds even more fun to the game, I think.
Exactly. Right when the other team is expecting it, change it up and get them confused. Big kill right there by Gonzalez Gutierrez. Right off the hands of Jayden Hall, I think that was, and into the Southern Virginia bench. Aldo Gafar back to serve for St. Andrews. He's played a big role for St. Andrews so far this season. Steve Rasmussen with a big kill right in the middle, hitting right off the chest of Cerqueda, and that's another point for Southern Virginia.
Christian Schaefer back to serve.
Number 11, Christian Schaefer back to serve for Southern Virginia. Big serve and a good setup for Gutierrez. Jameer Jackson saves it, and another setup for number 10, Kenton Bedford. The Knights are able to set it up. Christian Schaefer, big hit and right off the hands of the front line for St. Andrews, and that's another point for Southern Virginia. Big serve into the net by Christian Schaefer. Now 6-5, Southern Virginia.
Back to serve for St. Andrews, Hugo Gonzalez.
And that's one thing that went well for Southern Virginia yesterday. They had a lot of service aces and not too many errors on the serves.
Which isn't always the case for the Knights. I have been here for games that they have had struggles with their serving. So last night, like I said earlier, sometimes you really do play to the level of your opponent. And so with yesterday being against a nationally ranked team, I think with their serving, it came up a little bit more.
Exactly. Steve Rasmussen back to serve for Southern Virginia once again. Good receive. They feed Alda Ghaffar, and he's going to get a point for St. Andrews. He leads the team this year with 204 kills. Has really almost played every single set for St. Andrews this year. And that's Kenton Bedford back to serve for the Knights. Really powerful, but that'll still pass the line, and another point for Southern Virginia. It's 8-6 now in set number 2. Jayden Hall, leading the Knights in aces this year, is back to serve. Good receive by Circada, and a good feed right in the middle, but a great block by Mateo Kimball and Curtis Stone combining there. But that goes in favor of St. Andrews as it came just out of bounds. Dakota Hodling back to serve, number 5 for St. Andrews. Big serve, and it sails just out of bounds for another point for Southern Virginia.
Jamie Brown back to serve.
Another good receive from St. Andrews. Alda Ghaffar right over top of Mateo Kimball, but he feeds Christian Schaefer now, and that'll bounce off the wall, and another point for the Knights. 10-7 now in set number 2. Jeremy Brown back to serve for a second consecutive time for Southern Virginia. They feed Jameer Jackson in the right side of the court. Then McKimble feeds Christian Schaefer. A good save by St. Andrews. They're able to get it back over, and Kimball feeds Christian Schaefer yet again and just can't get to it. 3 St. Andrews Knights diving for that one, but it'll be a point in favor of Southern Virginia once again. 11-7 the count. Jeremy Brown back to serve again for Southern Virginia. Another receive that Christian Schaefer calmly puts back onto the side of St. Andrews. Good awareness once again by Christian.
I call those happy birthday presents because it's just given to you by the other team. It's right there for the picking. And if you handle it well, it's just a little present. Yeah,
that might be the easiest point he scores all season. No contest at the net. An easy kill there. Vasquez Sanchez subbing back in for Jameer Jackson of St. Andrews. And he is back to serve. Madsen feeds Kimball, who sets up Christian Schaefer again, right on the line, and that's another kill for Christian Schaefer. It's 13-8 Southern Virginia. Connor Stokes, number 17 of Southern Virginia, seeing his first game action today. He subbed in for Curtis Stone, number 14 of the Knights. And Stokes is back to serve. Good feed to Juan Silva, and that's going to be a point for St. Andrews. Super strong on the left side of the court. And Stone's going to sub back in for Connor Stokes.
Madsen back in for the Knights.
Justin Madsen back in as well, actually, my mistake.
Well, you were right, but then Madsen came in as libero for whoever came in. So, yes. So, liberos are always a little bit tricky in volleyball.
Yeah. They sneak onto the court.
Yep.
Kimball to set up for Steve Rasmussen right down the middle and over the outstretched arm of Vasquez Sanchez. And that's going to be a point for Southern Virginia. And back to serve is Mateo Kimball.
Yeah, in volleyball, you have a certain amount of substitutions you're allowed during a game, even during a set. So that libero doesn't count as a substitution, though. So you can have him in, and he's always in the back row. And sometimes those front row players aren't as skilled in the back. So you want that defensive specialist libero in the back row as much as you can.
Yeah, they're super agile, and Madsen's been an extreme asset on the team this year.
Of course.
Christian Schaefer, big kill right into the knees of Alga Dafar, and that's going to be another point for Southern Virginia.
Breakdown. Schaefer back to serve.
Christian Schaefer back to serve for Southern Virginia. Christian Schaefer right into the net. Just as Miriam was saying, it's been a little bit of a struggle so far this year on the serves for Southern Virginia. A lot of service errors, which is something that didn't happen yesterday against Marymount. Jeremy Brown will set up Kimball, who feeds back to Jeremy Brown. A big wind-up, hits the front wall and Dakota Hodeling of St. Andrews, but it goes out of bounds for a Southern Virginia point. Steve Rasmussen, the senior from Las Vegas, Nevada, for Southern Virginia, back to serve. Good receive, and they'll feed Jameer Jackson on the left side, and he'll spike that one right into the middle. It's a point for St. Andrews.
Back to serve, Bradford.
And Miriam, as much as we talk about the skill and athleticism of Southern Virginia, the St. Andrews has a couple of outside hitters that have elevated and been able to strike it right down the middle.
Yeah, I feel like the St. Andrews team might not have as much height, but I feel like they can make up for that with their verticals.
Absolutely. Christian Schaefer right down the middle, dishing it right back to St. Andrews at 17-12, and the Knights regain that 5-point lead. Jayton Hall back to serve the Knights. Big serve, and that's going to serve high left, another service error for Southern Virginia. And Dakota Hodeling is back to serve for St. Andrews. Hodeling so far 7 assists for St. Andrews. That leads their team. And that's his second service error of the afternoon. Point back to Southern Virginia. And it looks like Jeff Tomlinson there is going to sub in for number 4, Jeremy Brown of Southern Virginia. And he is back to serve the Knights as well. And a tough receive there. He just sent it right back to Christian Schaefer, who spikes it back into St. Andrews' zone. That's another point for Southern Virginia. Seen a few of those so far from St. Andrews. Have a tough time receiving those serves. Goes right back over the net.
I've also noticed that the St. Andrews defense might be up on the court a little bit high or a little bit closer to the net than they need to be for the Southern Virginia Knights. They've gotten a lot of balls or a lot of the hits right into their chest. I think if they backed up just a little bit, they could get it more with their arms or see where it's coming a little bit faster.
Yeah, it's almost like Southern Virginia has been able to recognize that. And so far, St. Andrews, they haven't adjusted, but let's see how they come out of this timeout now. Once again, Alda Ghaffar has been seems to be the star for St. Andrews so far this year. Leads the team with 3 kills. They've been feeding him a lot. He has 10 total attacks. And the other side, Christian Schaefer with 17 kills so far today. He's been super accurate this season and has continued that streak here in the early going of this matchup. But again, St. Andrews, they only trail by 6. Second set has been similar to the first one. St. Andrews got off to a good start, but the Knights have been able to right the ship in the second half of these sets so far. Let's see how St. Andrews comes out of the timeout. It's Jeff Tomlinson back to serve the Knights once again. That's a better receive from St. Andrews, and Jameer Jackson, a good spike right into the middle, into the hands of Jayton Hall. That's a point for St. Andrews.
I couldn't help but overhearing the St. Andrews coaches saying that we need to control the passes. We're doing pretty good with serving, but we just need to control the passes.
Exactly.
And so it looked like he took that advice.
Yeah, That's a great play by St. Andrews. Just exactly what they need to get back into this game. A nice soft serve there. They feed Christian Schaefer, and a good save by number 11, Gonzalez Gutierrez. But Alda Gafar attempted spike, but it's wide right, and that's a point for Southern Virginia.
Checking in for the Knights, number 17, Connor Stokes.
Connor Stokes subbing back in for the Knights in place of Curtis Stone. And Stokes, he's back to serve for Southern Virginia. Serve right on the top of the net. That's going to be another point for St. Andrews. Another service error for Southern Virginia. And Curtis Stone will sub right back in for Stokes.
And then Madsen sneaks up.
And Madsen steps in. Starting to get used to that. First time calling a volleyball game. I'm not used to it yet, but it's good to have you here.
No, that libero definitely is a tricky thing.
Steve Rassman, a big spike, but just above the line, and that's going to be a point for St. Andrews. Jameer Jackson ducking under that one. Good job to elude the shot. And that's Juan Silva back to serve for St. Andrews once again. Big wind up, big serve into the net. Another point for Southern Virginia. And Mateo Kimball back in. He'll be serving for the Knights next. As the score is 21-16 in set number 2 for Southern Virginia. And Kimball as well serves it back into the net. So that's two guys that have come in for Southern Virginia and served it right into the net. That's Alda Gafar back to serve for St. Andrews. Clean serve, good setup by Kimball for Christian Schaefer, a good block and just out of bounds. That's a point towards Southern Virginia again.
You know, there's a lot of power behind that hit when that ball bounces across the court out of bounds off the blocker.
Absolutely. Southern Virginia has a lot of power on their roster. It was a great block by St. Andrews, but too much heat on it. There's a good set and a good feed. Kimball setting up Jeff Tomlinson with a spike, but that's going to be just out for a point for St. Andrews. Good to see Jeff Tomlinson get in on the action there. Now Gonzalez Gutierrez back to serve for St. Andrews. Right over the net. Kimball for Madsen feeds Jayden Hall. Elevating, hitting the ceiling. And St. Andrews softly sends it back over. And here's Jeff Tomlinson again, a big strike, hits the ceiling. St. Andrews getting help from the barn, and Steve Rasmussen again sending it back over. And it looks like that's a point for the Knights, maybe touching the net there from Jameer Jackson. Great rally. St. Andrews getting some help from the barn, but a good save nonetheless, but the Southern Virginia will still end up with the point there. And Steve Rasmussen is back to serve, number 20.
I don't know if anyone else noticed, but Jameer Jackson was all over during that last rally.
Sure was.
I love to see that scrappiness and that determination in a player.
Yeah, Jameer Jackson from St. Andrews showing some athleticism, getting some big digs and point-saving plays. That's another service error from Southern Virginia, and they're back setting up again. Feeding number 3, Bryce Stringham. Point towards Southern Virginia, and Stringham is back to serve again as well for the Knights. Another player for the Knights who didn't get any playing time yesterday against Marymount. And that's a nice deceptive serve. Cercada wasn't able to handle it, and that's another point for the Knights, a service ace for Stringham. Back-to-back great plays for Bryce Stringham, who is a serving specialist for the Knights. And that will end the second set. The Knights lead at 2-0, and they'll switch benches again here for the third set this afternoon. So far, so good for Southern Virginia University, despite a few service errors and good play, honestly, by St. Andrews. They're giving them a tough matchup. And we'll see the energy that comes out for the third set here. Southern Virginia trying to cap off a strong weekend. Yesterday evening defeating number 12 in the country, Marymount, 3-0. And they're ahead here 2-0 against NAIA St. Andrews Knights.
I mean, this has to be a fun game for the Knights, or I guess, yes, that's true, since they're both the Knights. But this one for the Southern Virginia Knights, because some other players, like we talked about before, are getting more playing time than they usually do. And so, and even, I think that's fun for the whole team. It's fun for the whole team to be able to see the guys that don't normally get to play to be there, but then if you are that guy, you get to have more playing time yourself. It makes it more fun all around and like we said earlier, it makes it nice for the coaches, because then you have a little bit more depth to your roster. It gives your usual starters some rest for later games that might be more conference play and more telling of how the tournament plays out later in the season.
Exactly. It's nice to see your typical starters like the Schaefer brothers, McKay Walker, Jeremy Brown get super excited for the guys that come in who don't typically get to play, because the guys like Connor Stokes and Bryce Stringham, all these guys play a really big role on the bench during the games, getting their team energized. So to see them give this opportunity and take advantage of it is great to see.
And I mean, the whole team, they know how each other plays. They're playing each other in practice. They see each other. They know their strengths, their weaknesses. And so to see them out there during game time, it's fun for everyone.
And Mary, we might have touched on it before I got here earlier today. We haven't seen any of McKay Walker. I know he had an injury earlier in the season, so they're probably just being cautious with him, not wanting to sacrifice him for later in the season during conference play and potentially the NCAA tournament. Looks like Kyler Evans, who didn't play too much in the second set, will come out starting for the Knights in the third set. Also, Jeremy Brown is coming back in. Justin Madsen looks ready to go.
When they play that music, you just can't help it.
Yeah, that's one thing. The Knights, they know how to have fun. Southern Virginia does. They had a lot of fun yesterday. Granted, it's easy to have fun when you're winning, but they're doing a good job of keeping themselves motivated, energized, and ready to go.
I mean, I even see number 11, Hugo Gonzalez, over there dancing away. So it's just a good vibes all around here in the barn.
Let's get ready for set number 3. Don't believe me? Just watch.
That looks like, can't quite catch the number there. Back to serve for St. Andrews. He's not on our roster actually that we have here, so apologize to those watching. But that's a point for the Knights, and back to serve is Christian Schaefer. Leads the team with 17 kills, I believe, today on the day. Big windup, big serve, and right off the hands of number 11, Gonzalez Gutierrez of St. Andrews. That's another point for Southern Virginia. They lead 2-0 early on in the third set. Christian back to serve once again. Good receive, and they're going to feed Juan Silva. And the Knights, good block, and it goes right off Justin Madsen. A point for St. Andrews. A really nice looking block.
Back to serve for St. Andrews, number 11, Gonzalez Gutierrez.
And Gonzalez Gutierrez is back to serve for St. Andrews, a freshman from Spain who has played a lot of sets for St. Andrews this year, but that one goes right into the net for a service error from Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Number 17,
Connor Stokes subbing back in for Steve Rasmussen. And Stokes will be back to serve as well. Clean serve, a good receive. And they're going to feed it back to Juan Silva in a nice block attempt, but it bounces right into the area where nobody for the Knights was. That's a point for St. Andrews. That's Juan Silva, a freshman from Elizabeth, New Jersey, back to serve for St. Andrews. Good serve right into the court, right in front of Connor Stokes. Wasn't quite able to get it. That's another point for St. Andrews. Juan Silva back to serve yet again. Good receive by Connor Stokes, and they'll field Kyler Evans, and it goes just over the line. That's another point for St. Andrews, 3 consecutive points for the Knights. Southern Virginia bench trying to motivate their group. Big powerful serve by Silva, but that floats over the line, and that's just what the Knights needed of Southern Virginia to get going again. Kyler Evans back to serve for Southern Virginia. Big serve into the net again for Southern Virginia. That'll be another service error. And Alda Gaffar back to serve for St. Andrews. Nice clean serve to Christian Schaefer. Kimball feeds Jeremy Brown, a strong play, elevating to the left of the net. And that'll be a point for Southern Virginia. Jeremy Brown back to serve. And a nice deceptive play, but Christian Schaefer read that all along. Great awareness once again by Christian Schaefer, and that'll be a point for Southern Virginia. Good receive into the ceiling. They're gonna feed Vasquez Sanchez, I believe that was, but a good block, and Southern Virginia gets the point again. Mateo Kimball on the block. They're going to set up Alda Gaffar. A good receive by Kyler Evans, I think that was. Jeremy Brown will just send it over. St. Andrews on the attack again, but a great block by Mateo Kimball and Curtis Stone. Those two combined once again into another point for Southern Virginia. Good energy from the Southern Virginia bench, but that's another service error from Jeremy Brown.
Back to serve for St. Andrews, Alex Vasquez Sanchez.
St. Andrews will serve cleanly over the net. Connor Stokes receives it. Kimball feeds Christian Schaefer just on the edge of the line on the left side. And that's another point and a kill for Christian Schaefer. Steve Rasmussen subbing in for Connor Stokes of the Knights of Southern Virginia. Curtis Stone back to serve. Just grazes the net. St. Andrews reads it well, and that's blocked by Steve Rasmussen, I think, in front. Deflected back off the St. Andrews attacker, and that's going to be a point for Southern Virginia. It's good to see Mateo getting in on the action on the blocks there. Not the biggest guy on the court, but he is effective. Alda Gaffar off the net, but a good play by Curtis Stone to send it back up, and a miscommunication from St. Andrews turns into a point for the Knights.
Yeah, sometimes when you make a play like that, you're like, well, I guess it's nice to be lucky sometimes.
Yeah, you could see Curtis Stone's reaction. A little surprised that that went for him, but he'll take it nonetheless. His up to serve. Nice, powerful serve. A good receive from St. Andrews. And they'll feed Gonzalez Gutierrez again, but Kimball sets up Evans, but he's into the net. A point for St. Andrews. Madsen, the libero, back in for Southern Virginia. Was able to read that one there. Maybe a little easier being on this side rather than the side that we can't see. It's a good serve by Kenton Bedford. And the Knights will see Christian Schaefer. And a good play by Kenton Bedford, but he didn't have any of his teammates in the area. That's another point for Southern Virginia. Mateo Kimball back to serve for Southern Virginia. Clean serve over, a good receive. But Aldo Gafar's a little far back. The Knights have it. Kimball feeds Christian Schaefer. He smoked that one onto the left side, but just outside, and that's going to be a point for St. Andrews.
I mean, this game for Christian Schaefer could be a game where he tries different hits like that, but that one went a little too wide.
Yeah, super aggressive attack there from Christian. Had a great game yesterday against Marymount. As that serve from St. Andrews goes right into the net. And that's Danilo Negrão, number 16 of St. Andrews. Our apologies for not getting that earlier in the set. Christian Schaefer back to serve. It's a soft one. And they'll feed Gonzalez Gutierrez. A good tip by Jeremy Brown and Steve Rasmussen keeping it alive. St. Andrews on the attack again. Jeremy Brown the block. A good play by Mateo Kimball to save it, and Christian Schaefer sends it back over. St. Andrews attacking. Madsen a good dig. And Kimball feeds Jeremy Brown, who hits the post. Hopefully he's okay. But that's going to be a point for St. Andrews Knights. Official over to make sure the net is secure, not off balance in any way. Gutierrez, Gonzalez back to serve, and Madsen receives that. Kimball feeds Jeremy Brown, elevating, and a huge strike for number 4 of the Knights, and that's another point, 14-9, Southern Virginia.
I'm sure Jeremy Brown appreciated that one was away from the pole and the antenna that time.
Absolutely. That was a great setup by Mateo Kimball, I believe it was. And Connor Stokes subbing back in for the Knights, and he's back to serve. It's clean over the net. Good receive from St. Andrews. And they'll strike it right into the hands of Connor Stokes, and Kyler Evans on the right side sends that in, deflected by St. Andrews, but it's a point nonetheless for St. Andrews, for Southern Virginia, I'm sorry.
I mean, he was pretty low hitting that ball, so I don't know if he purposely hit it against the blocker's arms or not, but it definitely worked.
Big shot from number 21, Braden Rubiano, but Jeremy Brown is there to block it and send it back into their zone. It's 16-9, Southern Virginia in the third set of play. Connor Stokes back to serve yet again. And a good deceptive play by Juan Sylvan. That'll be a point for St. Andrews. Good play from Stokes to be there, but ultimately, I believe it was a net violation, and that's a point for St. Andrews.
Yep, that is, yeah, the down ref is in charge of calling those net calls, and if she saw it, then she saw it, I guess.
Juan Silva back to serve for St. Andrews. Christian Schaefer receiving. Kimball feeds Christian Schaefer again. Super powerful spike right in the middle of the court, and that's a point for Southern Virginia, and another kill for Christian Schaefer. Kyler Evans back to serve for Southern Virginia. And a tough receive again. It goes right to Connor Stokes, and Kimball deceptive over the net, deflects off the net as well. And he'll take that. It's 18-10, Southern Virginia. Two St. Andrews Knights combining for that one. But the Knights gain control again, and Christian Schaefer elevates right in the middle of the court, and another kill for him. Jeff Tomlinson to come back in for Southern Virginia, in for Jeremy Brown, number 4. Kyler Evans serving again for Southern Virginia. Good serve just over the net, a tough receive, but St. Andrews able to get it back over, but past the line. Another point for Southern Virginia as they've taken control of the third set here. It's now 20-10.
Yeah, it's hard when you're set so far off the net to get it down towards the court when you're hitting. And he was already going for it and had to back up for it.
Kyler Evans serves into the net for another service error. It's 20-11 now for Southern Virginia. And Bryce Stringham, number 3, checks in for Southern Virginia. Had a great ending to the second set. And let's see if he can pick up where he left off. Braden Rubiano back to serve for St. Andrews, number 21. Nice looking serve, but just outside the line. Another point for Southern Virginia. Tomlinson, number 13, back to serve for Southern Virginia. Good receive by Gutierrez. Combined block by Christian Schaefer and Curtis Stone at the net. That's going to be a point for Southern Virginia, 22-11. And a bit of a deceptive serve by Tomlinson, but that's going to be a point just on the right side for St. Andrews.
Back to serve for St. Andrews, number 9, Fokua.
Ariel Fokua to serve for St. Andrews, sophomore from Cameroon. Kimball is going to feed Curtis Stone. Fokua, good save there. And St. Andrews just nicely get it back into the Knights side of the court, but a good kill by Curtis Stone.
Steve Rasmussen back in for the Knights. Back to serve, Curtis Stone.
Steve Rasmussen subbing in for Connor Stokes. And it's Curtis Stone back to serve for Southern Virginia. Christian Schaefer almost reached up for that one. But Kimball feeds Schaefer, and a huge kill for Christian Schaefer. Lots of power behind that one into the right side of the court. Tough to get a hand on that one if you're St. Andrews.
Yeah, St. Andrews Libero actually did a great job receiving that hit, but then, or making a save when his hitter couldn't get the ball. Made a great save right there, but then couldn't receive that hit from Schaefer.
Super deceptive by Kenton Bedford. Gets it over to the Knights, who feed Christian Schaefer yet again. So close, but that's another point for St. Andrews. Still match point.
For St. Andrews, number 10, Kenton Bedford.
Libero Justin Madsen back in for Southern Virginia. Nice looking serve from Kenton Bedford. Had some power under that one. Got Tomlinson a little off balance, and that's a point for St. Andrews.
I love that Mateo went under the net. So if you go outside the net, under the net, but outside the antennas, and if he sent that ball back over outside the antenna, we still could have played that ball. So I love to see that scrappiness and that effort by players on the volleyball court.
Good awareness by Kimball, and that serve goes into the net. And Southern Virginia takes set number 3. It's a 3-0 victory for Southern Virginia against the St. Andrews University Knights. Good playing by St. Andrews, a good competition for Southern Virginia coming off that big victory against Marymount. But ultimately proved too much, and Southern Virginia gets out of here with 2 wins in 2 days to move on to the next game.